Welcome to Beans and Breakdowns, a podcast dedicated to bridging the gap between specialty coffee and the heavy music community. On this episode, I'm joined by Mike Rule of Shed My Skin and HardTimes.ca. So grab a fresh cup of coffee and wake the fuck up! What's going on, caffeinated crew? Today, I'm joined by somebody that I'm sure a lot of the younger crowd, especially in Montreal, maybe doesn't know about, has never heard of. Maybe like an OG to the Hate 56197 craze that is on YouTube now. But it's a certified Montreal OG. I feel like it's safe to say. Mike, how are you?
Good, thanks. I wouldn't have accepted this invitation if I wasn't a fan of yours and your band, you as a person and a member of our local hardcore community. So all those boxes check off for me, and I'm not much of a stage whore, so I don't really need to go out there and broadcast my opinions on stuff. But I figured, hey, you're looking for content. For years, I begged others to give me their content to build my channel. So I figured, let's go for it.
It's a little pay it forward moment.
It really is. Yeah, totally, bro. Totally.
Well, I've interacted with you quite a bit at shows, and I think there's other things that you're majorly responsible for that haven't been announced yet, that will be soon. And so just getting to know you from speaking at shows and through the people that I'm friends with now, being in Montreal, I just find your story extremely interesting, and being an early archivist online before a lot of the platforms we're used to now even existed, and just kind of what that was like back then. I think talking about that is going to be really cool. But first, let's talk about coffee. Are you drinking something?
I have a coffee cup behind me. Give me 1 second. Let me grab it. We have a really cool podcast table here. So here, but I am drinking my fourth coffee of the day.
Wow.
No, it's not whiskey in here. It's not vodka. It is a brown, viscous liquid. It is a coffee. It is a black coffee. And got my coaster here. We have a nice podcast room. This is my company's podcast room.
What?
So that's kind of inception. I'm guesting on a podcast from my own podcast studio.
Not using the podcast equipment.
Not using it for this. No, just my shitty laptop. Well, it's not so shitty, but it's okay. But yeah, so I'm into coffee. We get it delivered by like a local roaster. What the fuck's the name? My partner does all those things. He's the coffee orderer. But anyways, it's like a local coffee, espresso, bean, roaster, and delivery service. And we're pretty happy. Our clients are happy. We go through lots of beans every week. And yeah.
So you're an espresso. You prefer the espresso?
Call me a pussy, but I like oat lattes.
There's no shame.
Respect. I was going to say a worse word, but then I held myself back. So, look, I like lattes. I like double espressos. I like black coffee. I like allongés, Americanos, whatever. I'm not picky when it comes to coffee. I just don't like shit coffee, and I know shit coffee when I taste it. So, yeah.
That's like one of the truest statements I think that's been said about coffee on here, because we get a lot of like all over the spectrum of coffee drinkers, and I try to keep it, a little more pretentious because that's the kind of person I am. And we get a lot of people that try really hard to just be like, I really go after this or this. So just saying like, I like good coffee or I don't like shit coffee and I know it when I taste it is a very real statement.
Yeah, I mean, quality, you feel it or you don't, right?
It's true.
And um, I feel like, you know, I feel like a lot of Montreal hardcore bands have, tried to peddle their sound and pretend to be great over the last number of decades. And as hard as they try to, force their music down people's throats, and despite all their efforts, just their music did not connect with people the way that I guess they were hoping they would have liked, or they would have hoped it would. Your music, your band's music, is not falling prey to those same cliche pitfalls. I think for whatever reason, there's or a set of reasons, you're a Montreal hardcore band that's actually transcending those typical QCHC cliches of like big hopes and dreams, trying to emulate an American sound, and then just not quite pulling it off, and then breaking up, of course, after never touring. That's like literally
Playing
the
the Quebec
history of
Montreal
most Quebec
circuit.
hardcore bands. Yeah, it's like we receive bands from upstate New York and from the Northeast, but why haven't more bands from here ventured out there on a more regular basis? Whereas you guys just hit what, Rochester, Buffalo.
Buffalo, Cincinnati, Detroit,
Ooh.
and we did Western Mass. We've done twice. So we did Worcester the first time, and then this past time we did it's like a super sick venue that is probably going to be closing down within the next year, called the Hoff. You remember that video of all the kids playing in that metalcore band and they destroyed all the gear, and it's like a white square room called Clock Tower. It was like circulating.
What band was it?
Clock Tower is the name of the band, like X Clock Tower X.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. Oh, okay, okay. X Clock Tower X. Yeah, it's not ringing a bell.
It's like it got really big on like TikTok and all over Instagram and stuff, where they destroyed all the gear that they borrowed from other bands.
It's amazing.
So yeah, there was that venue, which is really fun.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm. I'd say it's thanks to bands like yours and to your guitarist, to John. One of my close friends, that that I'm even still, I guess, able to keep up with some of the current happenings in the scene locally. I mean, it's funny. I have a lot more friends in the hardcore scene in the States, as well as in Europe, as they do locally.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, maybe because as a journalist, as a writer, and then a video journalist, I was always covering out of town bands. I was always giving them that, like awesome, web video coverage, going back almost 20 years now, when they roll through, to make it, that much more worth their while for having, put gas in the tank to drive all the way here. It's like, yep, get your entry, get your door, sell your merch, but I'm really happy to see you guys. I love your band. Let's have a conversation, and let me film your set, and let's just throw it up online for free. And that's what we did for thousands of bands for years. And so I built a lot of relationships that way, that have thankfully, fortunately, endured the test of time. And it's those same people who bugged me mercilessly to start a t-shirt page on either tshirtslayer.com or Instagram. And I'm not really down with the interface on T-Shirt Slayer, and also it's full of full of scammers. Not like Instagram isn't full of fake profiles and shit, but I decided it was just easier for me to throw up an Instagram and post some T-shirts on there that bands can kind of like, reminisce about when they printed it, or what weekend shows those shirts were printed for. Or, kids can write me and offer me, insane amounts of money for these shirts, and you know, maybe some months if I need extra buck in my pocket to support my kid, I'll sell a double or a triple variant that I have or some shit, you know, but most of my collection doesn't move. It stays in the archives and it gains value. So anyways, yeah, another rambling tangential answer that completely loses the flow of the conversation. But anyways, back to coffee.
Yeah.
The company who we get coffee from is called Barista.
Ah, yes, I know them.
You must have heard of them. If you're into coffee, then of course, yeah, you know about them. So yeah, we get our beans from Barista. We've been, you know, from them for many years. We have an old relationship with the owners, really nice guys. They actually have their own podcast. They have a coffee, a French language coffee podcast. Maybe you've seen an episode or two.
There's a few in town.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. And my business partner has a side venture, which is it's called a la carte, and it's a mobile coffee cart business. And so, like, it's a mobile coffee cart for events, because my company's been working in events for a long time, so they are often at events. If you've ever seen, you must have seen them at an event you were working at or something. Maybe you did.
I think it's the same. I can't remember. I think it might actually be this guy, because your partner, because I was working an event at this the Science Center Belvedere room, the new thing they got.
Yeah.
So, and I believe I got a card from him. So yeah.
Really, eh?
Yeah.
That's really funny. Yeah, well, that would make sense. The guy who would have been there, his name would have been Andy. Was he a big burly guy? Looked kind of like a wrestler.
Yep.
Okay, so Andy's like the main. He's like the barista, right? He was a chef for many years. We've both known him for a very long time. He's a great guy. My partner is just. I mean, he's the guy who came up with the idea, because we've been working in events for a long time, and he like back ends the company. He does all the marketing, the advertising, and then Andy goes out and you know, delivers the service. And so yeah, so you must have met Andy Drapkin.
I think that might have been who it was. I was mixing, because I worked in live events for a very long time. I still freelance every now and then. So
Sweet.
I'll tell you what I'm drinking.
What are you drinking, bro?
So my boss went on vacation. He went back home for some family weddings in Dominican Republic, and brought back something called Casa Barista for me.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, it's a Dominican grown, everything's Dominican about it, coffee. And there's a lot of stuff in Spanish that I don't care to try to translate right now. But it's kind of citrusy and nice. It's good. It's good coffee. Shout out Dan. I work in coffee.
You work in coffee?
Yeah, like I roast coffee and like do production coffee stuff, and yeah. So he's a friend of mine.
For who?
Balance in Verdun.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. It's on Daily Glees, close to the viaduct.
I'd love to come visit you at work and try some of your coffee. I love being exposed to new beans, you know?
We have one right now that's pretty crazy. It's a micro lot.
Oh, sick. So where do you sell your stuff?
So we sell out of the roastery that's in Verdun. And then we have some wholesalers that they'll sell in like grocery stores and stuff. But we have a main cafe that uses our coffee as well, called Nocturne in the Plateau.
I've heard of them. There's this place called Dreamy. I'm sure you heard of them.
Yeah.
So they're right down the street from my studio.
We're right around the corner from that.
Like across the water?
Yeah. So go underneath the 15 on Venderive, whatever the name of that fucking street is.
La
Vérendrye, yes. And then basically where the Couche-Tard is on the other side of the water?
Yeah.
We're literally right behind the Couche-Tard.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, you're very close to here. Okay, so yeah, you work very close to my office. I'm gonna come visit you for sure. Let's set up a little coffee roastery powwow shindig throwdown thing.
Yeah, let's do it.
and I'll come sniff and fondle your beans.
I don't that that's comparable to when Hoya was on an episode and said that he preferred women to handle his beans. But I mean, that's Hoya. Like, what are you gonna do?
That's that old scrim many times over the years. Sad that he's not in Madball anymore, but it's my understanding that he's extremely involved and invested in his sons, and so you really got to respect that. And I don't know. That's the reason why he left the band. Not my business, but he's always seemed very, very involved and invested in his kids' lives, and I love seeing that. It's really awesome. And whether he's still in the band or not, I mean, he's doing his new band Smoke AD now with Sean Martin and Lordy's like Danny Diablo, which is pretty cool. They're playing their first shows soon. I've been spinning that EP, and I just love the Madball guys, so much. They've always been so nice to us. I toured Canada and the northeastern U.S. for a brief period with Madball and Brick by Brick.
Oh God.
When I was doing my Shed My Skin thing, and it was actually your guitarist John who encouraged me to do another hardcore video magazine. That's why Shed My Skin. Shed My Skin exists literally because John, kicked me in the ass or encouraged me to kind of, do it again, right? And his old band, Hopeless Youth, was the first band that I interviewed for that project, and I interviewed them at the tattoo convention, where I also interviewed Mike Manny from Stigmata. So Hopeless Youth, so John Donnelly and Mike Manny were the two first guys I interviewed for Shed My Skin TV. And then, of course, Stigmata ended up, I mean, they've been a long time thread in my life in more ways than one. I'm friends with the guys. I love the band. I collect their merch. I filmed all the reunion shows in New York, and we stayed friends and, making introductions, right?
Oh yeah.
So yeah, tattoos, Shed My Skin, Stigmata, John Donnelly.
That's when Mike was tattooing, right? Yeah. He was here like was that him that was doing tattoos?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mike was here tattooing. Yeah. And that interview is still on YouTube. Actually, Mike is selling a bunch of his old tattoo equipment through his Instagram page. He's selling old guitars, old tattoo gear. So anybody who's interested in buying some shit, I suggest checking out, his Instagram page. So let me just give you the handle so you could, so anybody who wants to buy some tattoo stuff can, just want to make sure I don't fuck up his name on here. Yeah, it's Mike _ Manny. So Mike _ MANEY. GoldTigerTattoo.com is his studio, and on his Instagram he's been posting lots of different tattoo guns and guitars, so anybody who wants to buy some shit or likes collecting old stuff can go check out Mike's page. Yeah, that's that.
Buy a guitar that's been played on a Stigmata record casually.
Really? Oh yeah, I mean he's he has some nice guitars. He has some nice guitars, and he's always been a great guitarist. All those leads that you would hear, like a lot of the leads, if not all of them that you'd hear on the old Stigmata stuff, that was all Mike. Mm-hmm. Like Mike grew up on, Metallica, 80s thrash, 80s crossover, so he was always into the leads.
You mentioned something earlier that I think we need to revisit. The QC, was it QCHC?
Yep.
There was a message board. I think it was around the same time or before the B9 boards. So how much of that played into when you think about like A Death for Every Sin, Final Word, Enforcers, like the bands that had the American vibe to a sense that people across, even across the border to the South, they know those bands.
Yeah.
How much of that do you think played into what hardcore was doing in Montreal at the time?
The board, like that site. So, I mean, Jeff Jeff X from Radical Attack, right? He was the founder of QCHC. I think he started it in '96. I started writing for the site and terrorizing the message board around 97, 97, 98. And then I started, writing a lot of articles and show reviews as well. So, I wasn't just a troll. I was also,
You're right.
I was an aspiring hardcore journalist, and I wanted to write about, bands that I loved. And well, that was kind of the root of what would become Hard Times. But QCHC really was one of the first hardcore websites in the scene in the mid 90s, really, because Jeff was a programmer and he put the site up, and some of Jeff's favorite bands were Avenged Sevenfold. He famously loved Avenged Sevenfold, as did I. We're of that era, and he wrote these long, rambling, puff pieces about how great Avenged Sevenfold were. Like, he really just went over the top, and I too was an over the top review writer. When I loved something, I just gushed about it for paragraphs and paragraphs, and he appreciated that. And so I became this, frequent contributor to the site. And he had show listings on there, lots of show listings that he kept updated, and it was a resource. It was for sure. It was definitely a resource for the Northeast. I think we had Vermont show listings on there, so the Northeast, was getting visibility on the board, on the site outside of Quebec. So there was that kind of that exchange of underground show info. Vermont, Maine, Syracuse, obviously, because that was the era that was the era of Syracuse. That was the era of Hellfest and Earth Crisis and God Below, obviously. God Below, for me, were one of the greatest bands of all time, still to this day. And they were Syracuse royalty. I mean, they were Syracuse outcasts. Earth Crisis were Syracuse royalty. But to me, God Below are Syracuse royalty. Santa Sangre, same thing. And the Syracuse scene kind of petered out in the early 2000s, unfortunately. Then Hellfest moved to Jersey and kind of vanished. But those years, yeah, the New Year's Eve shows, New Year's Day shows in Syracuse, Death for Every Sin played those, Perfect Murder played those. It was an amazing venture that Jeff put together, QCHC, and I was very proud to be able to cut my teeth and contribute something of value. The articles, the reviews. The trash talk was just funny. I had a lot of frustration in me from my upbringing at the time, and the message board was a great place to let it out anonymously. And fond memories. People are probably still scarred from some of my salvos, my assaults, my virtual assaults on their identity. But it had to be done. You see these comments on Instagram. People say, "Bring bullying back," and I always find that kind of funny, because the old days of message boards, you could bully people and only the moderator could ban you or put you in timeout or whatever. Now it's like you have these big offices that do censoring, but it seems like censorship is having a harder and harder time, eliminating or reducing the bullying, because I'm seeing a lot of it online now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying it's a good thing, because I don't think it is, but back then, in the context of an innocent underground message board, I think that it was funny.
So that would lead me to ask, because even when I was growing up in the scene in the late 2000s, early 2010s, there was still a lot of gatekeeping. And some of it not great, obviously, borderline bullying, but then there's a lot of it that I think was a lot of like proving yourself and like cutting your teeth
Mhm.
on what it looked like to be not just playing in a band and playing shows because it was fun, but being a part of a community. So how much of that do you think is missing from today? Like a lot of gatekeeping has fallen away. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I know gatekeeping's it's a powder keg of a topic, right? We're talking about hardcore. Um, who am I to say who should or shouldn't participate in the scene? Because Jeff, let me into the scene when I was younger. I came to shows. So Dave Boucher actually let me into shows very early on, and I would attend shows with him before I started going to shows, and so I was allowed into the scene. No one blocked me from participating, and I I really appreciate that. I appreciate that I was able to discover the shows through flyers at like the Underworld,
Mm-hmm.
or street teams or whatever. Start going to shows, get to know the bands, start contributing articles to websites like QCHC and Lamb Goat, right, which is where I wrote for many years as well. So it's like if I'd been gate kept out of contributing to the scene, contributing something positive, my whole life and career would not have taken the direction that it did over time. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm very thankful for that. The hardcore scene really is where I was able to express myself creatively without that much judgment or whatever, and I was able to feel I can bring some value and build up my kind of, how can I put this, my fragile ego, my low self-esteem from a rough childhood. The hard being able to contribute to the hardcore scene really did help me self-actualize, to help me to salvage my adolescence and not turn really bad.
Mm-hmm.
So very thankful for the scene for that. So the scene never really kept me out of being part of it, or being a member of the community. So as much as there is that discussion now of like, oh, hardcore should do more gatekeeping and stuff. If you ask my opinion, I don't think that hardcore should gatekeep. I think that it should, for better or for worse, the internet and social media has opened the scene up to much broader audiences,
Mm-hmm.
and some of those audiences come and go, right? Scott Vogel always talks about, right, 6 month face, here today, gone tomorrow, H2O. Like there's a lot of songs that document the transient nature of hardcore scene visitors or guests or tourists, if you will. Not everyone is going to be a lifer. Not everyone wants to stick around. Not everyone can stick around. And it's fun to kick their asses on the way out, but I think everyone should be allowed to come and sample it and be given an opportunity to contribute something positive. And if they just turn into detractors and haters and critics, well, then I think they should be, um, you know, chased out, or they end up seeing themselves out the door anyways, after they, let's say, try to use the scene for their own selfish goals, or they use it to grandstand and pass opinions to kind of elevate their own, fragile egos for like a minute. Hardcore is not a place for people to gain celebrity status. It just
Mm-hmm.
isn't. It's a place to enjoy, to feel like you're part of something bigger than you, to feel like you could express your struggles through aggressive art form, make friends, hang out, and that's what hardcore has always been to me. And so if you come in there and you try to become a celebrity through it, then you don't deserve to stick around, and you'll probably see yourself out because you're not going to get famous. Hardcore will not make you famous.
Oh, such wise words.
Yeah.
The people that
It's tip of the iceberg, tip of the iceberg here. But don't get me pissed because I'll start naming names and I'll start talking real shit. I don't want to go there today. I'm trying to stay zen.
yeah, I'm trying not to delve too deep because I could be like, who name some no, we're not gonna go doxing people.
Too easy. It's too easy. It's too easy.
Um but I do like what you said about that because I can't remember who said this quote. Me and John talk about it. But like it's that hardcore is for everyone, but not anyone.
That's great. I love that. I love
And
that. Yeah.
like you're saying, the
Open
natural,
arms.
yes. Like come, see what it's about, you know, watch it. And if you feel the tug, you feel the pull, contribute. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Said, we are here with arms wide open under. That's
Karaoke
us.
karaoke episode. Let's do it.
We got to do it, bro. Take it back to grunge. I could do every song from Pearl Jam 10 from start to finish. Uh, and then I can do some Section 8 and anything that has, that grungy warbling. Creed, I'm great at that.
Big Creed karaoke guy here. Arms wide open. Higher. That as a
Yeah,
church
hires.
as a church boy, that was I could listen to that song.
Dude, I'm going to send you a meme that my buddy sent me yesterday. And it was some mariachi band at like a sports event. There's like 20 of them. And they were doing like a mariachi version of Creed's Higher. It's so weird. And it was I have to say it to you. It's too fucking funny. A second. The quote on the video was, yeah, my girlfriend says you should learn to appreciate other cultures, and then it goes me broadening my horizons, and it's a mariachi band.
I mean, that's just beautiful.
Or just
What's crazy is the noise canceling on the Zoom will like only let me hear like what sounds like a voice.
try and cut that meme. Try and cut a little bit of audio from that meme into the interview if you can.
Yeah.
Rip the audio from the meme, pop it into your episode. That is so. Why are we talking about that? Creed, and then a mariachi band doing a Creed
We were
cover.
talking about arms wide open, welcoming people into the scene, and then
Yep. It's all legit. So yes, so hardcore is for everyone, but not anyone. Right? That was what you said?
yes.
Yeah. With arms wide open. Our arms are open to receive the lost, the beaten, the broken. But it's not for anyone. So
Yeah.
Somehow I'm still here. I'm still hanging around. And I mean, I also, travel in other circles too, because I have to for work. But the hardcore scene is definitely where it's where I come from. In the words of Phil Anselmo, that's where I come from. Yeah, I like Pantera. So what? I grew up with Pantera. Crowbar, Nola.
How many bruiserweight riffs are Pantera? We could have a calculator.
Really, eh?
It's a lot.
Yeah, that's cool. But do you tune it a bit differently? I guess you tune it a bit differently.
We'll either slow it down or speed it up. John mentioned this like last night. He was like, this riff in this song, and he's like playing a bruiserweight song. Then he played it at the speed that Pantera plays it. And I was like, oh my God.
Oh wow! When I first started hearing you guys, um, first thing I thought of was, you know, like first gen kickback, like cornered era kickback, which itself is just total NYHC worship,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're talking Killing Time, um, some Breakdown, some Biohazard, Madball, because the kickback guys lived in New York, uh, in the early '90s for a couple of years. They really just they soaked it all in. That's where they built relationships with the Mike from All Out War, right? And then Stefan from Kickback put out the first All Out War 7-inch on Harvard Records. That's how that relationship started. That like France New York connection started from that trip, and then the bands remained friends and influenced each other for years after that. But your sound reminds me of that early to mid '90s NYHC. You know,
It's the best hardcore.
it is, yeah. It's like it's groovy. It's riffy. It's confrontational. It's tough.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when No Warning came out, right? Um, you're a bit too young to have experienced that, I think. But they hit the scene like a ton of bricks. When they hit the scene with their brand of, NYHC flavored, uh, you know, bouncy old school hardcore, there was nothing like it at the time. They were just fucking. And then Ill Blood, of course, is one of the greatest hardcore records of all time. It's pretty much an agreed upon fact by anybody with any kind of taste or half a brain. So it's like when they did that, um, when they dropped Ill Blood, that really changed. That changed the game, and they almost helped revive the old, the early '90s NYHC sound with that one album. They're a Toronto band, but they were signed to Bridge Nine, so they did get pushed a lot into the States.
Mm-hmm.
And we should all be very thankful for that, because No Warning remain an amazing band to this day. They still tour very aggressively, which I love to see. I love seeing that. Whether Jordo is there or not, the band is still performing. And I mean, those riffs, those songs,
Mm-hmm.
that shit is undeniable. So, Bruiserweight, gives me a similar feeling when I hear you guys to how No Warning made me feel when I first heard them.
Well, to be put in the category of that alone is extremely special because, like, I'm just happy that people in Montreal alone like what we do and come out to shows and mosh. So it was never meant to be anything other than a fun band to play shows and
Yeah,
fuck around.
totally. Well, because I mean, you guys don't sound like No Warning. You have different sounds, obviously. Uh, Vocally, the bands are very different, obviously.
Oh yeah.
But I feel that you guys are authentic. The way that you kind of, throw back to past eras and kind of show respect for past eras and past sounds and vibes. I feel that it's authentic the way that you guys execute and deliver it. So in that sense, I feel similar to how I felt when I first heard No Warning. So that's, and music and hardcore, either you feel it or you don't, right? So
It's true.
there you go. And another band that oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's say your thing.
Another band that I think is fucking amazing is Desecrate. Obviously, they're dear friends of ours. A fellow Anglophone, English-speaking ginger frontman. Interesting commonality. I don't know
My
if anyone's
cousin.
drawn that parallel before. No way.
No, it's not my cousin. I'm from Georgia, bro. That is, there's no way we're related.
I would love, dude, we need to do a GoFundMe to raise some money for a couple of ancestry tests to see if there's even 1% that you guys are related. Because I mean, there's the ginger gene is rare. The Anglo ginger gene, you might be related.
It's inbreeding. That's all it is.
So you're both English, you're frontmen, you're both good friends with John. I think you could be related.
Cousins by mutual connection.
Fair enough.
And he sells
Fair
me all
enough.
my supplements.
Well, see, there you go. He's peddling his wares. Um, you're front men of, you know, two of the, you know, hardest and realest best bands that the city has to offer at the moment, in my opinion. And not only mine, but in others' opinion too. And look, Desecrate just dropped their new single Power Play from their upcoming full-length debut record. Um, Scott Vogel from Terror, Buried Alive, guest vocals on that song. Sounds like 100 Demons,
Mm-hmm.
which I know is a very important band for those guys and for me. And anyways, Desecrate, amazing band. Um, Wish them a lot of success with the new record, and everyone's got to go check out their new single Power Play. It's really awesome.
The production's on another level, and they've always had, I think, a good sound. Like everything they put out doesn't sound bad,
Yeah,
but
totally.
this new LP is going to sound insane.
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to recite some of Greg's more infamous mosh calls, but to prevent cancellation or career suicide, I will veer away from that topic at the moment. But Greg is famous for some of his mosh calls. I mean, his mosh calls have offended like the unoffendable. They've
Mm-hmm.
just been so brutal, but it matches his aura, his presence. He's the angry orange giant. And he pulls it off. So big fan of Greg's, big fan of his mosh calls. A bunch of them were captured on old Hard Times videos. Those are not online anymore. And he might not want them to be re-uploaded, but they exist on hard drives.
So shed my skin. Continuing on this very long winding path of your
Very cool.
archiving career.
Absolutely.
You did. It is the last Peter Steele interview.
That was actually Hard Times.
Oh, it was
Um,
Hard Times. Okay.
I ended up interviewing Johnny Kelly and Kenny Hickey from Typo in Montreal,
Mm-hmm.
because Peter was unavailable. So I was wait. So the label kept telling me, "All right, you're going to interview him before his set," um, which is customary. You interview bands in the afternoon, and then they go to their sound check, and then they play their set, and then they party. So I was like backstage waiting. With their tour manager. Peter is nowhere to be found. I'm like, calling the label, texting them. I'm like, hey, I'm here at Heavy. I know, it's hard to nail people down sometimes, but I got an interview booked with Peter for like, I don't know, it's 4 or 4:30, whatever. They're going on stage in like an hour and a half. I'm like, I gotta do this now. And then they couldn't reach him. And then in the end, they're like, oh yeah, Peter's out cold. Peter's unavailable for the interview. You can talk to Johnny and Kenny if you'd like. I said, yeah, sure, of course. And so we did 2 great interviews with them. Those are both still on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And then as we're finishing the interviews, right before their set time, like everyone backstage was like, guys from Hatebreed, guys from 3 Inches of Blood, A Shadow's Fall. It's a beautiful sunny day. And I just like see everyone's head turn. But there's like a meteorite or like a comet or something. Everyone's like, oh, oh. Everyone turns. So I turn my head and I look and it's Peter. He had just emerged from the bus and he was walking like Frankenstein towards the stage to perform. So he had just emerged from his morning hangover state, and they played the main stage at Heavy, and they were amazing. You know, they were never not amazing. So, yeah, so didn't get to interview him, but the label appreciated that you know, I guess manned up, settled for talking to Johnny and Kenny. I gave them two good pieces, and then they're like, listen, the next time Typo is coming through, near Montreal, you can go interview him then. So that was in the summer, and then in the late fall, early winter, he was Typo doing a national tour, playing in Clifton Park, New York, upstate, home of Section 8. And so I drove down. To interview Peter and ended up speaking. He had gone sober with that. He was sober. He was in great shape. Yeah, that interview and the whole kind of context behind it. I was actually interviewed for Peter's autobiography about the interview. And so like my interview about that interview is in the autobiography. So that was pretty cool. And I got in touch with the sisters after. The sisters send me Christmas cards every year still, because they appreciate how I made him sound, like the Peter they knew, right? Just kind of joking around, busting balls. And remember after so Peter didn't want to do interview before the set. He wanted to do it after the set. And I was like, usually that's a bad omen, because usually artists who say that will never give you the interview. They're like, oh yeah, after the set. And then after the set, sorry. That's why you always try to get your press done before the set. But he said after. I drove down to Clifton Park. I had nowhere to go. Obviously, I was staying at a friend's house, but I was just at the venue, filmed the whole set. I think it was actually a Halloween. It was a Typo Halloween set. So like it was on Halloween or something. It was right around Halloween. So I was like even more, true to their style and their brand. So tour manager texted me, said, go backstage, wait by the door of the bus. Peter's going to come and get you. I get backstage. I get outside the venues, Northern Lights. Now it's called Upstate Concert Hall. Mm-hmm. And I get backstage. I pop out, and who's there waiting to hang out with Peter? Melissa Oftemauer from Whole Smashing Pumpkins. She also she was living in she's been living in upstate New York for many years now. I think she's like married there. She's an art teacher, I think. Anyways, her and her dad have always been amazing. Her dad was an amazing, legendary journalist, Nick Oftemauer. And she's always been a, pioneering bassist and, 90s rock legend who didn't fall victim to the cliches. She survived. She started a family. And anyway, so she was backstage waiting to see Peter. And she went on the bus, hung out with him a little bit. And then he came out. And then we went to the backstage, the artist room there, and we did an interview. And the interview, it was taken off the Hard Times channel, but people always re-upload it. So like now someone else has re-uploaded it. I don't care. I don't make money off the views, but so I finally. And then I wanted to buy a hoodie, and they were all sold out. His tour manager walks in after the interview. And I told Peter, yo, I wanted to buy a hoodie, but there was nothing in stock. He instructs his tour manager. He's like, yo, your hoodie, give it to this man. And he tells his tour manager to take disrobe and give me the hoodie because he enjoyed the interview so much. And so I still have. It's it's typo, black on black zip hoodie, and less than half a year later, he wasn't with us anymore, and it was really really sad. It was really devastating. Just like when I saw Dimebag play with Damage Plan and The Haunted and Shadows Fall in Montreal, and then like literally weeks later, he was gone. It's just
That's
so surreal.
it's crazy. Like it is and like a lot of people do talk about watching that interview, you see like he is so like sober minded and like genuine. I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I mean he even addresses it like in the if people who haven't seen it, you literally can just look it up on YouTube and find
yeah.
re-uploads. But like he talks about like playing sober compared to playing like in his zombie state. And like he's like, oh, it's so much harder without the muscle memory. He's like, I have to think about it now. But yeah, it's so strange to see how like everybody says how like lively he is in the interview, and then like months later, everything kind of catches up. And I very much appreciate your time. I very much appreciate the work that you've done over the 20 years plus in the scene, interviewing, journalizing, um, everything, hard times, shed my skin, lamb goat, QCHC. Like literally, I don't know if a lot of people realize the amount of behind the scenes work that you've put in to making Montreal known by a lot of hardcore and metal bands and things like that. Um, you're like the underground hero. But I do
Thanks, bro.
appreciate hearing from you, and I appreciate our friendship. And what was I going with that? Oh, fuck. Oh, like a lot of people don't know this,
Yeah.
but I believe in an interview, Sonny from Hate 56 has even credited a lot of the work and videos that you've done as inspiration for him putting in all of the work in his video journal like channel from the start. Cause he started less than 10 years ago, I believe. Um,
or or around 10 years. So yeah, good point. I'll say a couple things, and then I'll let you get back to your real life, your IRL. We'll get back to our IRLs and other URLs. And
yes.
so hard times. I guess we were one of the first, if not the first, video magazine, as we were called. This is pre-blog era, pre even channel, right? It was called a video magazine, right? We'd feed stuff onto YouTube. We'd embed it on our site. We'd have a lot of, um, you know, written media that I would put together, um, and uh, and we're really the first, I think, to talk about politics and hardcore and culture all at the same time in a video interview uh, format, which for me came naturally because I'm a 90s hardcore kid. In the 90s, politics were, front and center, right? I mean, your bands, Indecision, Most Precious Blood, Earth Crisis, they all had full PETA spreads on their merch tables. They
Mhm.
talked openly about politics, animal rights, and that really inspired me. Straight edge, all that stuff. So for me, social issues, political issues. So I really enjoyed talking about that at the time with Hard Times, and you know, we were unashamed to really go deep on these topics with bands, and they were always a bit surprised at first, but then they really ended up getting into the conversations. Lemmy from Motorhead, that's a whole other podcast episode, but he said to me that our interview was his favorite interview he had done in 30 years. And that was our conversation at MTELUS, well, at the Metropolis. I got to unearth that and re-upload it, but that was an amazing conversation. What a guy. I'd love to chill with that guy every day. Real dude right there. And so, if Lemmy could appreciate the nature of our conversations, right, then that's kind of the only stamp of approval that I need, to be honest. But many other bands appreciated it as well. And then we fizzled out. We ran out of steam. ran out of money, ran out of steam, getting older. I had to get my career going. And then Sonny, who I've talked to over the years, obviously, a great guy. He said that Hard Times directly inspired him to start 856, which he took the politics, obviously, to another level.
Mm-hmm.
And he never really got into the interviewing, right? He was just kind of a live music archivist, which I was too, right? I've always been a bootleg guy. I love filming live shows. Hard Times was always full live sets and long interviews. Sonny just wanted to do the live stuff. And of course, he's done, so many amazing things for the scene. And yes, so it does seem that way that Sonny's 856 project was directly inspired by Hard Times. I also want to say plug to Unbeaten Records, Buddy Armstrong. What a guy. Stigmata, one of the best bands of all time.
Yes.
And just, such an amazing dude, and works tirelessly to put on, new band, to put up new bands, put fans onto new bands, and one of the greatest ambassadors of Northeastern Upstate New York, Troy Core, still going in the scene, never wavered, never sold out, never went soft.
Mm-hmm.
Great values, runs an amazing label, Ecovision.
The best label.
I think so, So, anyways, everyone should go check out Unbeaten Records and all the bands that he's released and all the releases that he has coming up.
Yeah.
So check out Unbeaten Records. Desecrate, I already said it before, but Power Play, new song, Scott Vogel, amazing. Bruiserweight and Desecrate, the only two bands in the city that matter to me. But anyways,
I'm leaving that in. I'm going to leave that in.
Dude, I'm a corporate dad now. I have limited knowledge of what's happening locally. Okay. I have limited time to check out things. Bruiserweight and Desecrate are the only two bands that matter to me. Only two bands that I have energy to listen to. And I think it's really cool that both singers are gingers and Anglos. I think that's pretty sweet, So
listen, I'm not Anglo by choice. All right. I'm Anglo by birth.
Mad respect, bro. And if your band sucked, I probably would not have guessed on this podcast. I do love coffee. Okay. I'm doing a McCafe this morning. It was easy to pick up. I know it's not a support local, but it's not bad at all. And I've never actually, I don't think I've ever properly guested on a podcast. I've been asked for years, and I finally decided to do it with you because it felt right. And, I know you'd be responsible with it, and we wouldn't go too dramatic or whatever. We just talk about facts and real stories and history, and that's what we did. So look, let's try and do another one at some point soon. I really appreciate your time. What else on a play? Oh yeah, New Spirit World.
Yeah.
Song is dropped. Album's coming soon. Spirit World, one of the best bands. One of the best bands in the world, I think, in heavy music. So shout out to Stu Folsom and Spirit World. Endless other shout outs. Jamie Pushbutton from Pushbutton Warfare. Tomorrow Death Threat with Jamie Pushbutton, his first time in Canada. Satisfaction, Death of Desire. The drums made that album.
Yep.
Great job with everything, bro. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. I have one last question before we go, and then we're done.
Do it.
What's your favorite city for beans and breakdowns?
My favorite city for beans and breakdowns. So basically coffee and music.
Mm-hmm. Don't let me down here.
So I'm gonna say Connecticut.
Okay.
I mean, for me, it's always a tie between New York and Connecticut. I happen to be a really big fan of Chris Beatty's CTHC coffee. So Chris from Hatebreed has a coffee company, and he does beans, and they're really good. Whenever Hatebreed comes through, I always buy a bag or two. And Chris Beatty, for those who don't recall, used to write a column for Hard Times. Um, he'd do a hate breed, live tour blog for years on Hard Times. He was always super cool. We'd always chill in Montreal, and lots of hate breed. You can go on YouTube, look up the hate breed Hard Times interviews. There's fishing with Frank. Frank, I got a bunch of fishing poles and bait. I went fishing in the fucking pond on Park Jean Drapeau. I think they pulled some fish out of the water too. I got a bunch of live bait, some poles, and that was fun. So I always tried to, get those guys stuff they can have fun with when they're in the city. And Chris was always really nice to me, and contributed to Hard Times very generously with his articles. And so Connecticut can't get any heavier. The breakdowns do not get any more vicious. 100 Demons, Death Threat, Hate Breed, Divided by Hate. All that great Connecticut stuff. Obviously, there's tons of new bands that I'm missing. Oh yeah, Soulless from Connecticut. Soulless, named after the Blood for Blood 7-inch, I believe. So yeah, CTHC for Life, Connecticut, and now Sean Martin's in Smoke AD with Ezek and Hoya, which is really cool. But yeah, so CTHC coffee, I think that's what it's called. I got a bunch of bags of it. I'm almost positive it's what it's called here. CTHC, yeah, CTHC coffee. That's the Bristol, Connecticut-based coffee roaster that is run by Chris Beatty from Paper. So
I didn't even know about that. So that's going on my list.
It's actually, I'll drink all kinds of coffee, but that stuff is exceptional, and there's a skeleton on it. So
there's a skeleton on it.
There is, yeah. So my kid likes that, and I do too. And I think you probably get like a signed bag. I think Chris like signs every bag, or he signs most bags that they ship out. Chris Beatty's amazing. He's an amazing bass player, dad, coffee roaster. Just all around amazing guy. So shout out to Chris and Hate Breed and CTHC Coffee and 100 Demons. And great talking to you, bro. Stoked to see your set tomorrow. Stoked to see you, beat some ass tomorrow in that pit.
We'll see. The hand is still a little fucked up, but
elbows.
Just throwing bows, yeah.
Last thing I'm going to say, Hate Breed just on their Satisfaction throwback merch that they put out to honor 25 years of Satisfaction. It's actually 28 years now. But anyways, so a few years ago, I have like one of their original demo long sleeves. You can see it on my page, a Shirt Breed on Instagram. You have the maces down the arms, right? And then the maces ended up getting crossed on the Satisfaction, victory designs. And for years, I was always like, wow, I wonder where the maces come from. What's the inspiration? They recently brought it back, and they put it on the arms again, like they did on that demo design that I have. People offer me, disgusting money for. Can't let it go. But I figured out, just nerd shit, I think I figured out why they put those maces on the arms, because it's like throwing maces in the pit.
Oh.
Hard style dancing, swinging fists. It's like swinging maces. I think that's where it came from. When I got that demo launch, I was like, wait a minute, it's down the fucking arm. That's the first time those maces kind of appeared, and I was like, that makes perfect sense.
It's sick.
It's like you're throwing maces, right? So it was cool that they brought that back on the merch recently. And anyways, Hate Breed for Life, t-shirt nerd fucking history that no one cares about. But anyways, there you go.
Yeah. Mike, this has been so much fun. I really appreciate you, like I said, and I can't wait to hang out tomorrow, have some beers, listen to Death Threat. What more could you want?
Very excited to see you guys perform as always, and hope there's a lot of kids there to discover, and really stoked on your new material and the label that it's coming out on. So very excited about that.
Thanks again, Mike. Cheers. Thanks for listening to this episode of Beans and Breakdowns. I want to say an enormous thank you to Mike for hanging out on the podcast. So interesting to hear a lot of his stories. If you haven't already, check out Shed My Skin TV. It's a YouTube channel. It's got a ton of videos from like the 2013, 2014 era. If you can ever dig up that Peter Steele interview, it's definitely worth the watch. It's not super long. So go ahead and show some appreciation to that. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. You can find out more information about the podcast by following us on Instagram at Beans and Breakdowns or on the web at beansandbreakdowns.com. Until next week, be sure to stay caffeinated and wake the fuck up.